Welcome back, everyone. We are now in episode 10 of season 2. So, as mentioned in the last episode, this episode, we are going to talk about neuroflexibility in the workplace. And I am very excited to have on special guest, Kay Sargent. She's the Senior Principal Director of Workplace Thought Leadership at HOK. So, welcome, Kay. We're really excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so Kay is a award-winning designer. She has decades of experience in this side of the field, and she definitely serves on many different boards for many different organizations. So Kay, your job title and your background is very extensive. So I'll let you maybe just take the floor for my audience who isn't familiar with what
That's a light way to say how seasoned I am. I love that. I appreciate that.
So my audience, Kay is a jokester. I got the pleasure of seeing her on a panel at a conference, and she tickled me several times throughout her speech. So she may throw in some jokes there. It's really, really funny. So thank you.
You have to have a sense of humor to get through life these days, right? But yes, I've been a practicing designer for almost 40 years. And if you heard that crack, that was my back. And I have really kind of focused on a variety of things throughout my career, well-being, inclusion, etc. But the last several years, we've really done a tremendous amount of research on neurodiversity, equity in the workplace, inclusion, etc. So I'm excited to share some of the stuff that we've done and found through all that research.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are excited to hear about it. So my network is filled with HR, payroll, benefits, HRIS implementation groups from many different companies and many different industries. So this is going to be really good for us to get into. So first question, wanted to run by you. So of course, many companies had been going remote, of course, during the pandemic. And now we're seeing that some are backpedaling, right? And making, employees come back into the office. And that's kind of causing a little bit of a rift between the employee population, the employer. So what would you say, neuroflexibility means in the context of the workplace, and really why it would be really important for organizations to embrace?
Yeah, I think what's important for us to all understand is that remote working is great for some people, but it's not necessarily great for everyone. And just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it. So I think for our clients that are really addressing this the most successfully, they're thinking about, what does your job actually require you to do? What do your customers and your colleagues need from you, and where do you need to be to do that? And then what are your personal preferences and your desires? So for some individuals, working from home has been an absolute disaster. They're disconnected, they're not getting the mentoring, they kind of out of sight, out of mind. Or even just, for a lot of people, there are as many distractions in the house as there are at the office. In fact, if you're a parent of young children, you could have even more. And if you're someone that is neurodivergent and you feed off of the energy of being around other people, or you need direction, or you need that, that socialization, being isolated can be a negative thing. On the flip side of that, there are some people that either from lack of mobility or responsibilities, or they get overwhelmed in the workplaces, remote work could actually be a blessing. So there is no binary, you're either all in or you're all remote. I think we have to look at it very situationally about what the company and your job and your personal preferences. So we need to take a much more holistic look. And right now, I think a lot of people are waking up in the morning and saying, do I want to put on pants and drive to the office? No, right? And that's not the right question to be asking.
Correct. Look, there's not a one size fits all in this situation, right? So, and of course, we all know once you get into the office, there could be so many distractions. Sometimes you can't even get your work done because people want to stop by and chime in. Some people like that, some people don't. But I think it was good for you to mention people with children, at home. I've known some that I've worked with before that they just want to be away. They just want to get away, be able to get things done. Not that they don't want to be around their children, but just to be able to have that piece of quiet, getting stuff done.
Listen, I am the mother of 5 children. Monday mornings couldn't come fast enough for half my life. I was like, get me, seriously, right? But here's the other thing. I mean, yes, when I go to the office, I am use the word distraction. I want to change that word to engaged. My job, if I think we're talking about the wrong thing here. And I think many people are saying, well, are you more productive? Most companies measure productivity by how long you're sitting on your computer. That's just it. How many keystrokes you're doing and how long. There have been days that I haven't left my house. I've sat in one place for 10 hours and been, they would have said I was incredibly productive, but I literally felt like I had the life sucked out of me. I went from Zoom call to Zoom call. I got nothing accomplished. I can't even remember what the first call was about before I was thrown into the second one and then the third one. And then, just this avalanche of meetings that I don't think is what most people really call productivity. And the more senior you are, I think a better question is, what does your company value? My company does not value me sitting and answering emails for 10 hours a day. They value me engaging with younger staff. They value with me engaging with our clients. They value me being in the office and spreading that knowledge or hearing what other people have to say and helping solve problems, etc. So those interruptions can actually, for a whole lot of us, be what our job actually really is to engage with others. And I think we've put this false narrative around this discussion that isn't really the reality. Now, there are some people that are doing heads down concentrated work, and being at home might be a better place for you. But we really need to reframe this discussion because not all interactions are bad, and a lack of interactions can be catastrophic.
Absolutely. And so, look, that leads me into next question around, for companies listening in, HR leaders listening in, and wants to know, okay, where can I even begin? How can I even create this in my workplace? How can I don't even know how to think of these styles. I'm so engulfed in, employee relations issues and
Yeah.
processing every day. How can someone really kind of get this going within their workplace and make sure, they have diverse styles?
Yeah, so I think there's three things here. There is, what is your organizational DNA? What kind of a company are you? What do you do? What are you? And I think DNA, we would say, is made up, an organizational DNA is made up of six strands. What type of work are you doing? Your work style, like what industry are you in? If you're lawyers versus IT versus engineers. What is the demographic that you're trying to attract? Right out of college or retired military, right? Very different. Your regional influences, London, New York, Miami, very different. Your culture, your organizational structure, and then what are their jobs? Like, what are they physically actually doing? If you know those six things about your company and your people, then the right solutions start to become self-evident. Then you need to think about, who do we have in our workforce? And are they highly interactive or not? Giving people collaboration space when they never collaborate is a waste. And we see a lot of people saying, oh, you're only coming into the office to gather, so let's give them gathering spaces. Well, if you don't gather, you don't need that, right? So it's about being purposeful about what it is that you do. And then the last thing is understanding how the built environment, whether it's at home or in the office, is impacting all of us. So the research that we've done really is about sensory processing and cognitive well-being. So acoustics, lighting, temperature, all of those things are impacting every one of us. But what might be annoying to someone that is neurotypical, meaning you have a predictable range of responses, could be debilitating to people that are neurodivergent, meaning you have a more extreme reaction to that. You might be autistic or ADHD or dyslexic. And so those elements in the built environment are impacting you much more intensely than it might someone who is neurotypical. But it impacts all of us. And so our research is really showing that we need to understand how to design the built environment with a variety of options and choices, because you have people that are hypersensitive, they need less stimulation, and you have people that are hyposensitive. They actually need more stimulation, right? They either need to listen to music or they need more visual stimulation. Boredom is the kiss of death for those individuals, right? Or they have a lot of energy and they need to move and fidget and be physically engaged. And that's a lot more people than we'd like to acknowledge or admit. So in fact, our research is showing that 1 in 5 individuals is neurodivergent. And so it's not about accommodating people that will be coming into your workplace. It's about accommodating the people that are already there and are just masking and suffering through.
Yeah, no, the latter part, I mean, the first couple, I think I had at least thought of evaluating. The latter part didn't necessarily come to mind. But that's why I was really interested in talking about this topic, because with my podcast being around the HR and payroll world, it is all about the people, right? And how we can really help them, which in return helps the business. And so just thinking about identifying those groups, some of those people may or may not, speak up either. Sometimes it is kind of hard. And as an HR person gets into their day to day, sometimes it's hard to identify if you're sitting in your office, or now that we are, working from home, it is really hard to figure out what people need. A people ops manager that I talked to last week is kind of dealing with that. They're coming up with nice things, but she's like, I don't know how we can constantly beat the next thing, but then also how they can know what everyone wants and who's speaking up and who's not,
Yes.
speaking. So that's always a challenge.
So here's what we would say to that. So first of all, if at least 20% of the workforce, and the statistics are showing it could be upwards of 25%, have some form of disability and or neurodivergent, and 70% of those are invisible. So it's not obvious.
Mhm.
And only 4% of people that have an invisible disability are disclosing it because of the stigmatism, et cetera, that is associated with it. So there's a lot of masking going on because of the stigmatism that has always been related to this. But as that stigmatism is wearing off and the awareness is growing and more people are acknowledging that they are, this is becoming a much bigger issue. And a lot of folks are thinking about the operational end. How do we make our workspaces? How do we invite people in? How do we make sure we're onboarding them? How do we recruit people that are neurodivergent? But they're not necessarily thinking about the built environment. So if I bring somebody in, but then I put them in a space that is totally misfitted to them, you're setting them up for failure. And so we really believe that it's a three-legged stool, that you need to think about the onboarding and the HR. You need to think about the built environment, and then you need to think about the personal adjustments. Because even if you do those other two things, HR and building the space correctly, you're not going to meet everybody's needs. You're still going to have those individual adjustments that you're going to need to do. And you can automatically assume that you have a certain percentage of people that are in your workforce that are neurodivergent, and some are hyper and hypo. So the only thing that you can really do is to provide options and choice and some level of a control so that you can, kind of find the space that is right for your specific needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So that definitely hits a lot of points on it. So I wanted to ask you about some certain challenges. I think that definitely hits a key on that, just the unknown. But then it does seem like the world is shifting where people are becoming more comfortable, right? And what
Yes.
people used to hide is kind of like, no, it's not just you, it's a lot of people, and everyone's learning how to deal with that, which is amazing. So now that we touched on that, I mean, let's get into what are some specific success stories. So not that, not to name drop any, companies that your company has worked for that you have, helped, but I'm curious to know, like, anyone who has embraced neuroflexibility in the workplace, what have been, some great stories that have come out of that, and, what potentially played key factors to that as well.
Yeah, so actually several companies multiple companies have created onboarding and specific programs for individuals that are neurodivergent. But when it comes to the physical built environment, we have several clients that have come to us specifically to help incorporate guidelines and standards into their processes about how they go about their future building their future spaces, because you don't necessarily have the luxury of saying, okay, we're just going to wave a wand and change everything all at once, right? So they're really thinking about how do we embed this in future projects. And then we have clients that we're also taking kind of the recommendations or guidelines that we've developed, and they're coming up with kind of almost like a checklist or a way to assess their space. Because if I were to ask you, is your space neuro-inclusive? Almost nobody can answer that question because they don't know what that means or how to test that. So when we've developed these guidelines and suggestions, then you can go in and say, well, what is the current condition? And is it easy to fix? Is it actionable? And then you can basically prioritize it by what's easy versus hard, what's impactful, high impact versus low impact, and what's cost effective versus really expensive. And then you can rank those and say, all right, well, if all of these things are easy, impactful, and low cost, do those today, right? Whereas maybe some of these other ones, we prioritize these later. And that checklist also then becomes your guide for when you're designing future space of what you should do. So we have multiple clients that we're starting to do that type of assessment and work with. And then we have clients that have taken this all the way through with projects, right? Early on in the process, we've gotten involved. We've looked at the 6 modalities of work because, we're bringing in all of our workplace research. We're combining it with all of the stuff we're doing around neurodiversity, and those two are coming together. And we know that there are 6 things that people are doing in the office, creating hyper and hypo settings for both, and thinking about how we're spatially sequencing the space so that we're creating zones that might be for more concentrated, quiet space versus louder, more social spaces, et cetera. So we're helping them develop their planning concepts and then implementing design strategies that really help bear that out. So I'll just give you one other quick example. A lot of our clients have focus rooms or phone booths for individuals that can't handle too much distractions or stimulation and they just need to focus. But if your designers are saying, oh, well, we want those to be fun spaces, so we're going to put bright colors and crazy patterns in those rooms to make them attractive, you've literally just short-circuited the person you've designed the space for. So it's not enough to just give them the right types of spaces in the right sequence. You also need to think about what are the elements and the principles of design so that we're delivering spaces where they can actually be successful.
Yeah, no, all good things, because look, that definitely has to drive employee engagement, overall performance, right? And definitely will add, to the culture of the company. And then as you're trying to bring people into the office, at least they have something, they know, okay, they may have their desk or the standard cubicle, or they may have an office, but if they need to go to a certain spot, they have that safe space to really lean on to. So I think that definitely comes back full circle and really just helps the environment as a whole.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll just give you one other thing. We're doing a lot of research right now, and we're in the middle of this, and some of the findings that we found have been pretty interesting because the common knowledge or the common wisdom amongst a lot of environmental psychologists is, okay, well, if somebody is neurodivergent and they're getting distracted, then put them in a private space or have them go home. Well, just because you're neurodivergent doesn't mean you're antisocial. And what we found in our research is more people are actually bothered by being in enclosed spaces than being in open. But the assumption was, oh, people don't like open space, so put them in enclosed spaces. So the cure that they're coming up with is actually in many cases worse than what the symptom was, right? And so I think we need to really think about giving people options and choices. And the second that you assign somebody a desk, and here's another thing. Well, everybody wants to have an assignable desk. That's mine. It's my space. And there are absolutely some people that are creatures of habit that need routine and consistency and need space that they go to every day. But for a lot of individuals, I've never known an employer to say to their employee, do you have any preferences about where you sit? Are you sensitive to visual stimulation or acoustical stimulation? Or do you have kind of what we'll call that prospect and refuge, that exposure, your back being exposed makes you really uncomfortable. So if I'm not asking and I'm assigning you a desk without thinking about that, if I put you in a spot randomly assigned that is on a main travel path, right outside a conference room where there's lots of noise and people walking by and my back is exposed and I'm sensitive to those things, my ability to focus and be productive has just plummeted like a rock, purely just by where you put me. That's it. And so giving people options and choices, even if after they found a desk, they choose to sit there all the time, at least they had the choice to where they actually sat, that they got to feel comfortable. And many of us don't necessarily understand some of this. Our sensory intelligence is almost zero. But being in a space where I have options and choices and I can experiment, you'll see people move around. And then within a few weeks, you'll start to see patterns where there are certain people that tend to sit in the same area or the same space every single day. And there's others that are all over the place. And so one person's ability to or desire to sit in the same space shouldn't mean that we're all locked into that and that we're all randomly assigned a space in the office where it's the luck of the draw about whether it's going to really fit my needs or not.
Yeah, I mean, great explanation. I'm just like soaking in all of that knowledge just because, like we said earlier, it's not just one situation for one person, right? It's not a one size fits all. And you really have to know your organization. And that is really on more so like the HR seat, right? To walk around, be observant of your group and your your employee population, but then also, as we're being remote for people who aren't even coming in, maybe it's a
Yeah.
hybrid situation, right? You really want to reach out to those people, make them feel connected because the whole just send them home is not a thing because then they don't feel connected. Then they won't like the culture. And then now you potentially ran off a good employee, So that's not the answer either.
Yeah, and let's just take that one step further. So a lot of individuals that are autistic who can be bring amazing strengths to the workplace, and really can be huge contributors. If they are sent home or work remotely and they're calling into Zoom calls all the time, what is everybody's pet peeve, right? That people are turning on their camera, that you're not visible, I can't see you, I don't know what you're doing. And if you do turn on your camera, then you're always looking around and you're not looking at the camera. And so I'm getting annoyed with you because I think you're distracted and you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
But people that are autistic have a very difficult time with direct eye-to-eye contact. It makes them incredibly uncomfortable. And they're not the only ones that can be uncomfortable with that. And so when you're on a Zoom call and you've got hundreds of people, or even just one, but let's say, several, staring right at you, it can be really intimidating and really overwhelming. I don't know anybody in the beginning of the pandemic that really enjoyed seeing themselves on camera and or having everybody else stare at them all the time. I think most of us have gotten used to it. But for a lot of individuals, that's debilitating. And so they turn off their cameras for a reason. So mandating that everybody have on their cameras, although it might seem logical for people that aren't bothered by that, it can be really intimidating for people that have a challenge with that. We're starting to see people come up with avatars or prefer to be in the office. So at least they're physically present, but they can be looking around the room and not necessarily staring straight into somebody's face.
Agreed. And even mandating, like everyone has a bad day where you just like, you're just getting up and you're just not in the mood to be presentable, really, right?
Yeah. I mean, we learned so much about ourselves. Like my eyes are lopsided, my ears are lopsided, my hair, like there are days it's like, what's going on with this lion mane thing? Like we get inside our own heads, right?
You start seeing every single little bit of thing. Yeah. So yes, definitely agree there. Well, let's look ahead. So looking ahead, what type of trends do you see or at least anticipate coming along with companies integrating neuroflexibility into, their workplace cultures or also like their strategies?
I think it's going to take a little bit of time. I think more companies are going to get hybrid working wrong before they get it right. And I think hybrid is much more of a operational model than it is a workplace solution. But we have to think about how do we create better workplaces that people actually want to be and they're enticing places to be. And for many people have been desensitized to being in noisy environments or around other people during COVID. And so coming back, the gut reaction initially is probably going to be, wow, this is foreign to me. I don't understand this because, again, we have been desensitized. But I think giving people the options and choices to have some private spaces, to have more open spaces. Frankly, I'm not commuting to an office to sit in a box by myself. I wake up in a box by myself every morning. I could just stay there if that's all I really wanted, but it doesn't mean that I want to be connected with people all the time. So giving people those choices in different settings, I think is going to be important. Having spaces that make us feel like we're tied to something bigger than ourselves is going to be important. I think that sense of belonging is going to be really important, and spaces should be the physical embodiment of a company's mission and their culture and their brand. We need to have really great spaces, having a conference room with the biggest rectangular table you can shove in it with a maximum number of chairs and a little teeny screen at the end of the wall doesn't cut it anymore. We have to think about, are you innovating? Okay, well then why do you even need a table in the room? Or is it HR and you want to be more friendly, or you do want a table between you and the person across from you, right? We need to really think about what are we doing and how do we design spaces that are more specific and fit for those specific needs. I think we have tried to come up with the, space that addresses the average person's need during the average task. And what we've done is we've neutered the workplace and we've just kind of stripped it and we've over genericized it. But work and people are complex and we are diverse and we need to create spaces that really reflect that. And it's got to be better than what I can get at home, because otherwise, why am I bothering, right? So I think those are all things that we really need to be addressing. And for a lot of our clients, we've been addressing that for years. So most of the stuff isn't really new. We should have always been creating great workspaces. I just think now there's a micro focus on how are we doing that? And we have an opportunity now to really, truly address that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that's all great insight. Definitely appreciate you giving those details and, to everyone listening in. So Kay herself, and then also her company, HOK, seems like they do tons and tons of research. So that has been confirmed that she's constantly talking about all that they have done for all of their clients as well. Anything else, Kay, that you want to at least discuss that HOK can do for other companies? Maybe take a deeper dive into what HOK can offer alongside that.
Yeah, so we do a variety. We design all kinds of things. We design things from LaGuardia Airport to Mercedes-Benz Stadium to workplaces. We do it all around the world, science and technology space, justice spaces, etc. I think the thing, though, that we really pride ourselves on is really understanding what the need and the intent is. And we are at a time right now where have the opportunity to rethink everything. We kind of do, because everybody is asking that question. And so helping our clients really truly understand what is possible. In fact, we've totally changed our process to really think about framing the possible. Where are you now and where should you be? And most of our clients have no idea what that is. And so we come in and basically like, here are all the factors, here are the things: diversity and equity, variety, sustainability, diversity, all of those things that are important. And then think about where are you now and where could you be? And when you see what's possible and what is out there, then it kind of becomes really inspiring. And I think we are at a point right now, we don't often get to rethink everything. In my 40-year career, this is probably one of the few times, maybe one or two other times in that entire career, have we really had the latitude that we have right now to rethink everything. If we don't take advantage of that, shame on us. And I think it's not just about rethinking the workplace. It's about rethinking work. I think there are societal issues here that are shifting. I think we have technology that is enabling us to do things differently. I think we need to think about how are we reinvigorating our communities and our spaces, and really what is the legacy that we are going to leave to the next 20 years of workers and that next generation. And that's something we take very, very seriously and love to engage our clients in helping them envision what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Put a crown on your head, Kay, because that just sealed it. That sealed it for me. Sold on HOK and Kay Sargent if I wasn't already. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, no, that was great. So I'm so glad we had this conversation. Thanks so much, Kay, for joining my podcast too, and at least getting the word out on this specific topic, just because it was really intriguing to me when I first heard you speak about it. Definitely wasn't something that I overly thought about, at least, in the workplace. So definitely I'm going to add that to my bucket of, things as I carry on with my career. And to all of my network listening in, definitely reach out to Kay if you have any other additional questions. We'll have, the link to HOK's website as well, in case you all want to, just take a scroll through of what they specifically do alongside what Kay already, mentioned today. And then definitely, if you need her services, reach out to her. She's amazing. She knows her stuff and she has great, great insight. So thanks so much, Kay, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was great to chat.
Thank you. And then next up, you guys, so in a couple of weeks, we'll be carrying on this conversation. I'm going to take more of a deep dive into culture in the workplace as well, because that goes right along with a neuroflexible workplace. Also, you got to make sure your culture is there, and this all adds to it. So I will see you, at least, in a couple of weeks. And thanks so much, Kay.
Thank you.